Hey guys, Tim Sykes, millionaire mentor and trader, here with Tim Grittani. We have a very special treat. Today, I want to go over Tim Grittani's story and just, flesh out the lessons that you've learned now. What, this is like your 5th year of trading?
About 5, yeah.
5 years from having $1,500 to your name to over $4 million. What's the number one lesson? We'll start with number one before we get into the past.
Do I have to get to 40?
Number one, yeah.
Okay.
No, when you get to 5 million, you have to do a blog post with 50 lessons. That's why I took the easy one with 40 lessons.
Yeah.
There's a great blog post. I'll link it under this video with 40 lessons that he passed 4 million. Did you like my 40 lessons?
Those were great lessons, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really liked them.
But you get the 50 lessons. So I took the
Can't wait, yeah.
I took the easier route. But what's the number one lesson that you've learned from everything in 5 years?
Number one would have to be cut losses quickly. And really the funny thing is when I kind of hit my rough patch in 2015, which was one of my worst years trading, but still green, but one of my worst, that was the rule I'd gotten away from. And up until that point, I'd been so consistent, green every single month. And then all of a sudden I just got really stubborn with NASDAQs. I went there, I started experimenting with them, and I learned the wrong lessons early because I would go on these rides where I'd be down 50K, and then I'd hold it for a week, and all of a sudden it's back to break even, and I'm like, whoa, well I'm smart, I didn't panic out. And then next thing you know, I take a $290,000 loss, then $180,000, $105,000. They just came one after another, and that'll wake you up in a hurry and kind of get you back on the right track.
I remember on your $290,000 loss, you had a tweet the day before the loss, and you took the loss. And if you didn't, it would have been actually more. It would have been like 500,000, I think. And you said, tomorrow it's like make or break. It's time to drop the hammer. And I was like, whoa, that's like dangerous talk.
Oh yeah, not only was I not cutting losses, I was trying to fight them too. So I'd be down 100K, and I'd be like, well, okay, like I'm down, but I'm not out. Like I can salvage this. Like my average sucks. I'm down big, but I'm just gonna hammer this thing at the top, and then it'll all be okay.
So this is my number one lesson. I love cut losses quickly. That's my rule number one. But I guess rule number two for me is learn the right process. Learn good habits early on. Like when you have a small account, you can grow your account using bad habits, and you can get away with it because it's small money. But then if you use those bad habits with big money, then it's bad. It's kind of like if you're a baseball player and you learn bad habits like in the minor leagues, you try and bring that to the major leagues, you'll get squished.
Absolutely, yeah. I see in the chat rooms a lot like this really black and white mentality where it's like, oh, well, if I win on the trade, it was a good trade. If I lose on the trade, it was a bad trade. And that couldn't be further from the truth because, again, the process, like the reasons you're in the trade, and just how you even got to that end result matters so much more.
I see students get encouraged by wins and discouraged by losses, although, as we both know, losses are actually better teachers. So you have to really, be grateful for the whole journey as a whole. Even though losses suck, they, especially like $300,000 losses.
Oh yeah.
I had a $200,000 loss, but those sting so much as part of your market tuition. So you pay that tuition, and obviously, if you cut losses quickly and you try to minimize your losses, then your tuition is less, but you still have to learn them. But I want people to be grateful for their wins and their losses, not just their wins.
Well, yeah, the losses are the best learning tools, absolutely. And even, I could walk away from a trade where, I was trying to play a breakout and it just didn't work. And I got out at my risk like I was supposed to. And to me, that's a good trade.
There's such a thing as good losses.
Absolutely. No setup's going to work 100% of the time. That's unreasonable to expect that. Yeah. And so you have to take those losses the time it doesn't work out. And that doesn't mean you did anything wrong. In fact, you could have done every single thing right.
And a good loss happens to everybody. I want you guys to understand this because I know it sounds crazy, like you lost money. Why are you saying that's good? That sounds like something like losers would say, like, oh, we lost, but we
had fun.
We were polite about it. We were good sportsmen or something. But in trading, you have to lose sometimes and learn how to A, cut losses, and B, take the loss. Emotional education is a big part of this. Like I like paper trading on Stocks to Trade, don't get me wrong, but you don't get the full emotional education.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think huge in your success.
I remember back when I very first started, like I had just found your site, I was in penny stocking silver, I was following along, and I was just paper trading, kind of just along in my head. And I think I was like 12 out of 12 or something like that. I was like, yeah, I'm awesome at this. And then I put real money on the line. You know, I was trading. I actually could lose, and it was a terrible start. Like I lost that $1,500 within 9 months. And it just was so different emotionally to have money on the line. I was shaking. I was freaking out. My heart rate was out of control.
Yeah.
It just
So
completely changes the game.
Let's go back to the beginning. So you had $1,500. You lost the $1,500.
Right.
Then you restarted with what?
Another $1,500 of my own. I mean,
So
I had borrowed the 11 grand from my parents.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that was there to keep
To
account
open the brokerage accounts.
Exactly.
But you didn't trade with it.
Right.
We have to clear this up. A lot of people are like, but you had 11
There's so
grand.
much confusion over it. Yeah, no, the money was there so that I could have 3 brokers that helped me around the pattern day trader rule. But I was never taking positions more than $1,500 or, you know, whatever portion of the account was mine at the time.
Yeah.
So, you know, I got 9-day trades a week, and that was the perk of having that extra money.
Cool.
But
I'm actually a fan of the PDT rule, especially for beginners.
it probably was good for me, and it slowed me down.
Because it protects you from overtrading. A lot of newbies, you think that you have to be in every trade. You're like, oh, I want to make $1 million, so I have to make $20 here, $10 here. And you're learning bad habits. You're learning how to scalp. That's not what made either of us, you know, a lot
Right,
of
yeah,
money.
and I probably was 4 or 5 months in around the time when I did borrow that money and get all those extra day trades, and I don't think it's a coincidence that's when things went downhill for me. I mean, most of my losses were trying to box and unbox some short that, you know, I just bled myself away on that because I was just in and out over and over.
You guys hear that? You don't need to trade as much as you think you do. We did
Not
an
even
interview
close.
with Steven Dux. He just passed 900,000 in profits. He says at most, even when he had 27,000 to start, or now when he has 900,000, he trades maybe once or twice per day on like 1 or 2 patterns. That's it. You don't need to make like 20 trades in a day.
Yeah, I became a lot more active as a trader as I kept on trading. I mean, I do probably trade 4 or 5 trades a day now.
Yeah.
But, you know, the vast majority...
I'm not talking about like entering and exiting like positions. I'm saying like you have one thesis on a stock, you
Right.
know. So you have like maybe 2 or 3 stocks max that you're looking at to trade in a day.
Yeah.
You're not trading 30 different tickers.
Right, yeah. I mean, my watch list is always 6 stocks or less, it seems like.
Cool.
And I mean, the vast majority of my profits really come from a few outstanding trades a month. I mean, the rest of the stuff, you know, it's, you know, great. It can add up a bit here and there, but...
We looked at Mark Crook's trades, another challenge student who just passed $700,000 in profits. 80% of his profits come from 6% of his trades.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And the rest of it, I mean, sure, yeah, you get that extra 20% profits, but the emotional and mental drain from just trading that much,
It's
I don't know if it's
frustrating.
worth it. Yeah.
Trading is very frustrating if you're just trading a bunch of stuff. You're like the daily grind. You're going through all this stuff. You're like, God, this isn't like freedom at all. This is like slavery.
Yeah.
Obviously, you don't know which 6% of your trades are going to be the best, so you do have to tinker. But you do have an idea. You know, I think what you learned is that you have a few key patterns.
Definitely, yeah. And
What are your key patterns? How many key patterns do you have that you find work reliably?
I'm actively using at least 4 right now. I mean, and some of them are just same pattern, different markets. I mean, like OTC multi-day breakouts versus NASDAQ multi-day breakouts.
Yeah.
I mean, very similar idea, but I like the OTC ones better. I think they're more reliable.
True.
From the short selling side, I still like shorting into major daily resistance. I love the overextended gap down, and that's one of the ones I think from my DVD that I've gotten the most positive feedback about from people. I get the most emails on that one, people saying, oh, I love your overextended gap down strategy.
You need to watch his DVD, Trading Tickers. How many hours is it?
16, yeah.
16 hours with what, 35 or 38 live trades?
35 live trades. Yeah.
35 live trades. Fantastic job on that.
Thank you, yeah.
What is the most popular pattern? Explain that.
The
in detail.
overextended gap down. So it's, you know, you get one of those big crazy runners. You know, maybe in one day it's up 150%. Maybe it has gone up 3 days in a row from $2 to $10, something like that. Point is, it's up a lot in a hurry. And you get that first red day where instead of gapping up for the 3rd or 4th day in a row, all of a sudden the stock is gapping down. It's red for the first time. It's a very logical point for the longs to start taking profits. You know, short sellers are circling, waiting to attack this thing. It's a big shift in momentum. Yeah.
I love first red day. Dux loves first red day. Mark Crook loves. There's something about the first red day. I don't know what it is. We all love it. I guess it works. That's why we love it.
Yeah, really. I mean, the times I get myself in the most trouble is when I'm still attacking green days. And I mean, there can be good trades there too on the short side. Don't get me wrong, but there's also more potential for trouble.
It's far less stressful shorting a first red day because now, the momentum is kind of shifted front side versus back side.
Big momentum shift and then clear-cut risk. You're either risking off of the previous close or the previous high day.
Yeah.
It's a very easy trade and you know exactly what you have to do.
But you have to wait for it. And
The patience is tough.
It's tough to wait for that first red day because you're like, maybe this will be the first red day, and then it's not. And you have a play like AUPH where it teases and teases and teases.
Right. And I think there's also the little bit of ego involved with it too, where you want to nail the top. Like
Yes.
I want to have that dead perfect entry, sure, but that's not the best way to do it. You can be $1 late in a lot of these cases and still have plenty of opportunity to size in and still be patient and ride it back down.
All right, let's go back to the beginning.
Sure.
So, I'm sorry, we talk trading, we get into it. You have $1,500, you lose the $1,500, you restock with $1,500, you borrow $11,000 from your parents to open a few brokerage accounts. What did you do then? Because you didn't have success right away. A lot of people are under the mistaken impression like Tim Rajani is like a born natural, It took you 9 months, I think, to be consistently profitable and not like make millions, just to be consistently profitable.
Right, yeah, the timetable was February 2000, gosh, what was it, 2012? 2011. February 2011, sign up to your service.
Yeah.
May 2011, I had my first trade. And then I believe it was about August 2011 where I blew up my 1,500.
Yeah.
So September, I started just building back. I refunded it with money I had worked at a State Farm all summer. So I had the money for it, thank God. And I just tried to learn from what I did wrong. I recognized the overtrading. I kind of realized, okay, I need to focus on where I've been the most successful and where am I the most comfortable. And I just narrowed my focus way down to 1 or 2 setups that I liked the best. At the time, it was...
How did you learn to do that so quickly? Because a lot of people are in that spot where maybe they've lost 1,500 or they're tinkering. How did you know to narrow it down?
Well, I mean, I'd been doing it for, at that point, 4 months, 5 months?
Yeah.
And I mean, I probably was averaging about 5 trades a week.
Okay.
So I had enough trades and I was tracking them. I mean, I ran all of my trades onto an Excel and I would,
Tracking.
Yeah, tracking, absolutely.
Keeping a diary, being meticulous and seeing what works and what doesn't work.
I could go back and I could see what I had been winning at and what I'd been losing at.
So you saw that if you minimize, you would do better.
Right.
Minimize the number of
yeah.
trades.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, the blow up, like I said, was mostly trying to box and unbox. That was short selling. I was very new to. I hate it too.
I suck at it.
I was just doing it last month, and it still messes with me.
I can't do it.
But
you learn what you can do and what you can't do.
Right.
And it's okay to not be able to do something. Some people think like they try to master all these strategies and they have to succeed at everything. And we're not all Michael Phelps. We can't win like 20 plus golds. Like have 1 or 2 really good things and you're still
Well, I mean, and it's fine to branch out later. I mean, very slowly, but
accept defeat. Accepting defeat, accepting loss is a big thing. Like
and
trading really attacks your ego at all angles.
It does, because if you see other people nailing a play that you're not, it's just not in your arsenal at the time, you feel bad about it. You say like, well, what's wrong with me that I can't nail this that everybody else is? But that's not the whole story.
Because we have different personalities.
Exactly.
We have different strengths and weaknesses. Mm-hmm. So you found that by minimizing your trades, your results were better overall.
Oh, by far, yeah. Because I did cut down to just longs. I was just buying new promos and I was just buying OTC breakouts. And I was comfortable with those. I felt like I understood them. And I had seen good results there. So it was easier for me to enter these trades and stay calm and not panic so much. And
you gain more confidence because you saw the results piling up.
Right.
A lot of people ask about how do you gain confidence. You gain confidence through success. You
do.
get success through testing.
Right, and I started to see also, I mean, they weren't all that common, new promos or OTC breakouts. So, I mean, there were times I would go 2 or 3 days in a row where I wouldn't make a trade because one of my setups wasn't there.
What did you do when you weren't trading? Were you sitting?
I was still watching.
Were you like rocking back and forth like an addict? Like I need to trade? Were you like sucking on your
Well,
thumb?
I was also in school at the time still, so I would, I'd be in class. And,
that helps.
That helped to have that distraction and other responsibilities.
Yeah.
But, I'm also content just to watch the market and watch these patterns play out and kind of try to familiarize myself with a specific stock.
Do you still watch the market when you're not trading?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'll get away sometimes, but...
So you just have like a beer and you're just like... it's like watching sports?
It can be, yeah. I mean, especially if there's one where I know that eventually it's going to be really high on my target list.
Yeah.
So I'll want to watch it maybe a day or two in advance.
Yeah.
and
to get a feel for
just
the
to get a
action.
feel for the action, yeah, and how the thing moves. But I did learn the lesson that it was okay to go a few days without trading, and that I wasn't, I was still going to be able to make plenty of money.
So how did you do? So you went back to 1,500, then, and with the 11,000 borrowed, how did you do over the next year? Take us year by year.
Year by year.
that'll
Okay.
be
Well, I know that if I refunded September 2011, I know by the end of 2011, I had gone from negative 1,500 to plus. I think I ended 2011 at plus 4,300.
Okay.
So I dug out and then some. And then started 2012 is when I was full-time trading. I
Gotcha.
was done with school. I had a December graduation. And
No more State Farm?
no more State Farm. No, I
Sorry.
was living at home trading full-time. And by the end of 2000,
And you had confidence to trade full time after just making $4,000?
well, I started to see the results. I mean, September was a green month, one of my first ones,
Yeah.
and it was only a few $100s, but still it was in the right
Yeah.
direction after
Yeah.
all the failure up to that point.
Gotcha.
And then October was a little bit better. November was my first really big win where I nailed the new promotion, made a little over $2,000 on it.
Nice.
And so, I mean, it's hard not to be confident after that
I
when
agree.
month after month is green.
Yeah.
And so I knew that I was just going to keep on slowly scaling up, and I started to actually have a little bit of cushion, and I knew I could branch out a little bit, and I could afford to make some new mistakes with new setups.
Gotcha. So you're making like $2,000 a month roughly?
Gosh, let's see if I can still remember them all. I mean, January, I think
This
was...
is all on Profitly, by the way.
It
if
is
you
all on
wanna go
profit.
back.
Yeah, I'm trying to do it by memory. January, I think, was maybe $1,500, 2012. And then February, gosh, I don't remember what February
This is
was.
March 2017. We just have to
I know,
timestamp this.
yeah,
'cause
timestamp.
People get confused. They're like, I thought
Well,
he
March
was up
2012,
3
March
million.
2012, yeah. I know that by the
This
middle...
was 5 years ago.
I remember specifically that I had this deal with my parents because I was living at home with them, and that really helped keep my expenses down.
Yeah.
And they weren't totally convinced about the whole trading thing.
course.
So they wanted to see results, more than just what I'd been able to do up to that point.
Yeah.
So it was, I needed to make 10K by the end of March 2012.
Damn.
On pace for $40,000 a year, which
Yeah.
was probably like about the level job I would have gotten right out of college
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah.
So I do know that by middle of March, I had made that 10,000 goal.
Cool.
And then by the end of the year, I was at 120 maybe? I can't remember now. But
So
it
my
was-
first year, I went from 12,000 to 120,000 roughly.
Okay.
And that was, granted, that was the bubble, very different. But when you get that first 6-figure year under your belt, your confidence explodes.
Oh, absolutely, because
Because now you're tinkering, you have your strategies, you have your spreadsheets, you feel comfortable. It's not like you're never losing. We're not omniscient,
Oh yeah, there were still plenty of losses. Really what helped vault my account that first year full time was the new promos. That was one of my best and most consistent strategies. Again, one of the ones that I've been doing since the beginning.
And this strategy is dead right now.
Pretty
mind you.
much, yeah, it is.
Understand
It's-
that. So when you look at his profit and chart, and it's not just like, oh, look how easy it is, it just keeps going. You're looking at and adapting to different strategy, different pattern after different pattern. So
right,
when one pattern dies, you're looking for something else.
I've had to learn new things along the way.
And that's good. That's how it should be.
yeah.
Promos are dead right now. Maybe they come back, maybe they don't. It doesn't matter. You have new patterns.
Right.
Okay. So you've made your 6 figures. Then what do? You go
I
to the
just-
Maldives. When did we go to the Maldives?
Maldives was October 2012.
Okay.
So I had actually I think into 2012 I was about 150.
Okay.
Because when we went to the Maldives I was at 100.
Okay, yeah.
I had just passed it. So
We're here at the Maldives with Tim Grittani.
What up, guys?
How's it going, dude?
Not bad.
This is your first trip overseas, right?
Yep.
So how long have you been a Tim Trading Challenge student?
I've been in Tim's Challenge for a couple months now. I was penny stocking silver for the last year and a half.
You upgraded your life.
I upgraded my life.
How much have you made in the last year or year and a half?
Last year and a half, I've made about $115,000.
And that was your little milestone. And Michael Good
Yeah.
was messaging me being like, I think this student has potential. And I was like, who is
Michael
this guy?
Michael Good sent me a little stuffed duck. It was awesome. Like like he did this.
I saw the
Oh.
stuffed duck. You still have it
I still have the
somewhere.
stuffed duck. Yeah, I've got to remember what, like he had this little system back at the time where he's like if you said a certain number of smart things a week in the chat room, he would award you a duck point.
Yeah.
And if you got 5 duck points, you would get this stuffed duck sent to you by Michael Good.
Yeah.
And I think I was the first winner of the stuffed duck. So
Congratulations.
that's how I knew I was on the right track.
And
that
Michael
duck.
Good really helped, mentor you because he was with the challenge and he was with, explaining the promos and everything. That's his game.
Oh yeah,
I never really did
He
well
was a
with that.
huge help with that because I was watching him, and anytime one of these big promos was announced, he would always be posting a $5,000 gain or more, and I'd be like, how does he keep getting these fills? How does he see them so fast?
Do you remember a webinar he did for challenge students, and it was like he optimized his email to get it like an extra like 2 seconds faster, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh my god, this is crazy, but it worked.
Yeah, I mean, he taught me how to think on that stuff. I remember, I mean, I had something like 15 email accounts strictly for promotions.
Yeah.
And I would sign up to the same website 15 times because I knew they staggered their emails, and I just wanted to make sure
you promoters are in for
I
a
wanted
treat when
I
you
wanted to
watch
make
this.
sure I would get the first email.
Yeah.
And so it was pretty ridiculous. And I would like be running tests of these things, like where I'd be like, I'd send one of my promo email accounts a test email, and I'd have 3 different email server things open, and I'd see which one gives me the quickest pop-up alert. And
You nerd. By the way,
I really nerded out.
I am
had
dressed
to.
like this because this is how Tim Grattani dresses. T-shirt and gym shorts. His wife is here too. And we got the sandals.
Sandals, yeah.
So this is what we do. I
And
hope this
these
is
are my
one way to
nice
go.
flip-flops. They are.
So this is all in his honor. I don't normally dress down like this, but it's kind of nice. I like it. I'm like,
It's really comfortable.
I need like a Gatorade and a Pop-Tart, and then I could be Tim Grattani.
That's all it takes.
I don't know. Sorry to interrupt, but all right. So you have these promos working. You're at 150,000. Then what did you do?
I believe started 2013 is around when promos started to die off a bit. One of the main promoters got shut down.
Yeah.
At least it was sometime that year, I think. And I just remember that year, 2013, getting off to a crazy start. I think that by the end of February, I was up as much as I had made all of the previous year.
Gotcha.
And that was also around the time that Fannie Mae was becoming active, and that was one of my darling stocks, and still is. Where anytime it gets really crazy active, I'm there waiting.
Is this
for
where
it.
you made $200,000?
That was May
Okay.
2013. Yeah.
Wow.
Because I remember, I think right around that time that
So you
play
like
came
doubled
up in
your
May.
net worth in like a day.
Pretty much, yeah. Because at that point, I think my Profitly chart had me up about 300K, and then that day I made 200 something. So I was like, wow, I almost just like doubled what I've done in the past year and a half.
So in 2000, I mean, this was like 2 years into my journey. I had my first $100,000 day, and I only had like 175,000 to my name at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, or 250,000 to my name. I bet like 175,000. I bet big.
Yeah.
But I had grown my account so much in one trade. And when you make that kind of trading day, like it really opens your mind as to the possibilities. And you're like, wait a minute, this isn't like a $40,000 a year potential job. Like, how do you
can do
get
a
to
lot
that
more
point?
with it, yeah.
What, I mean, there's a whole blog post. If you Google how to make $200,000 in a day, you wrote a great guest blog post. But how did your mindset change from before that trade to after that trade? Did you start betting bigger and start seeing like
I
different
definitely
stuff?
got a little more comfortable with more size. I mean, I think I withdrew some money from my accounts pretty quickly after that because I didn't want to lose it all back.
Yeah.
But you know, just to have that knowledge in the back of your mind that like you don't really have to worry about bills anymore. You
Yeah.
know, like that really changes trading when you don't have to worry about meeting expenses and there's no pressure to make X number of dollars a week or a month. Once that pressure's off, it becomes a video game.
And
it really does.
This is an important point because in an ideal world, you know, obviously we're human. We do think about expenses and bills, and most people watching this do start with a small amount. If you can get that mindset from the beginning, where like, okay, this is money I can lose. This is not money used for like rent or living expenses. Then you kind of take a little emotion out of it, a little bias out of it, and you can play the charts better, I think. Do you agree?
Oh, completely, yeah. Like I
But it's tough to
always-
get to that point because you know you look at money. Like even if you make $1,000, you're like, oh, all those bills I can pay. But you have to separate it.
Yeah, like I cringe when I get the messages, people saying like, oh, I have $500 and I want to start trading, and that's like all the money I have. Like that's not a position to succeed. It just isn't. Because it does usually take at least one round of failure, one account blown up. And like you said, you can't be worrying about like, oh, this is my rent money. Like it's got to be money you can afford to lose, and that really helps the mental side of the trade.
Well, a lot of people start forcing trades, and let's go into this a little more. I hope you don't mind.
Oh, sure.
If you feel like, okay, rent is due, I have to make $200 or $500 this week, you start forcing trades because you're like, I need to make this. Here's a good trade. Oh, no, that's a bad trade. Then you get out. Slippery slope. You start making terrible trades, and you're losing. You're going in the opposite direction, or you're learning bad habits, and you're not giving yourself time to focus on the best plays.
Right, there's definitely that pressure where you just feel like you have to do something, make something happen. And I also have seen it with traders, even if they're in the position where they're not worried about bills. I see it from the sense of like, oh, well, I want my month to be as good as last month. And, oh, I'm not on pace, so I got to make something happen. I've fallen into that. I've done it more times than I care to admit.
Me too.
It's a very tough thing to battle, that mental side of it, that pressure you put on yourself to make X number of dollars a week.
Would you agree that really successful trading is more of a battle of you versus yourself and your emotions and your ego?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's what ruins most traders is the emotional side of it and the ego side of it. These patterns aren't rocket science. They are probably the easiest part of the whole thing is just seeing a pattern and recognizing it. But then once all those emotions come into play, making a plan, sticking to it, and just all the things attached.
Did you have greater expectations for yourself once you made that $200,000 in a day?
I think so.
Is that when you started saying, oh, now I have to do this more? So it put pressure on. Even though it opened up your mind, it also added to some pressure.
One of the tough things about trading is that it really feeds on greed. And no matter how much you make, you always want more. There's always that next level you want to get to. I make 100K, I want $500,000. I make $500,000, I want $1 million. $1 million, I want $2 million.
This is the Jewish mentality. This is not just trading. Have you had your bar mitzvah yet?
No,
we need to get you to convert officially. You understand the Jewish greed. I own JewGreedy.com. I haven't done anything with it.
Whether it's greed or just wanting to better yourself, like I said, it becomes like a video game. You want a new high score.
Yeah.
And then if you're having a month where things aren't looking like they're going to go that way, you can get yourself into a lot of trouble.
Yeah. It's a slippery slope.
It really is.
I say this very often where, some people who have problems, I say, just stop trading for a week or take 100 share positions or paper trade. Just cut the addiction, cut the pressure. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing when they come back refreshed because you've taken some trips and you don't necessarily trade as much and you come back refreshed. Dux just took a trip and then he had his best week ever.
Yeah, it helps. It really does.
You need to clear your mind.
Usually my trips come after a big loss where I'm like, okay, well, I just screwed up big. Now I've got to take some time off, regroup.
Yeah.
And for once, I'm actually entering a point here where I'm taking some time off and I haven't had that big loss. So, every time I feel like I've gotten a little bit closer. The last one was right before your conference, UPLMQ got me.
Yeah.
That was great. I had decided I was
on
vacation.
Reporting earnings, right?
Yeah, they had earnings overnight and I wasn't aware of it and I got stuck. But it's so funny because like a day or two before that, I had said like, okay, well, I'm done now. I'm on vacation. It's time for the conference and all this stuff. And then I got sucked back in and then I took that big loss and I was like, oh,
you back in.
I was so close, but
it pulls you back in. But the lessons are good from the losses.
But yeah, anytime you're starting to feel a little burned out, maybe if you're better than me at getting away before the big loss happens, just even a week off, like that can just make such a big difference mentally and you can come back so refreshed.
I agree. So, sorry, we keep getting distracted. After your $200,000 gain in, what was it, May 2013?
May 2013, yeah.
How did you do the rest of the year?
So that would have put me up about close to $500,000. I think I made another $400,000 the rest of the year. So
Okay.
I think 2013 was about a $900K profit year because I hit the million in December.
Yeah.
That's what it was. December 2013 was
I
when
remember
I hit the million.
the CNN article. It's real.
Yeah.
Some people think that the CNN article, like they're like, you photoshopped CNN. I was like, it's a real thing. They went through all your trades. It was like crazy.
I've had people who are like, oh, I didn't think you were a real person. Like it's funny.
We're internet memes, I guess.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about that for a second because a lot of people I know have asked me about this. You make $200,000 in a day, but then for 8 more or 7 more months or 6 more months, you only make another $400,000.
Right.
Can you explain that?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Fannie Mae was that it was just such a rare opportunity. I had never seen anything like it. I
can
still
picture
haven't.
those charts, that intraday, the morning run
it was
up,
beautiful.
the morning panic, the bounce.
Well, the
and then it
volume
peters out.
was what made it so scalable. I mean, it was an over-the-counter market stock, and it traded, I think, 200 million shares that day. Like, we haven't seen anything come even close to that anytime since, except for every now and then Fannie Mae will fire up a 50 million share day, and that'll be kind of fun. But
yeah, they had one a few weeks ago.
Yeah. I missed most of that. I was really pissed off, but
it's okay.
But I mean, yeah, that one of those big opportunities was there. In that case, it was Fannie Mae, and I managed to take advantage. And I only took advantage because it had done one in March also, and I had screwed that one up. And when it had the move in March, it was, at that time, it was like a 20 cent to a $1.20 move or something like that, and then crashed down to 50 cents in a day. And I made 15K that day, or maybe 20K. And I walked away from that day, one of those days where you walk away green and the takeaway isn't, oh, well, I made money. It was a good day. The takeaway was, wow, I could have done so much more with that. Like, I didn't trade that well.
So the difference between a $15,000 profit day and a $200,000 profit day is what?
I guess the big difference in that case was there was some stubbornness on a short the day of that 15K profit. I had started shorting too early. I got myself kind of stuck. I was scared, and I really just had to back off, and I couldn't be aggressive.
Yeah.
Whereas the day I made the 200K, I had a couple early shorts, and I cut them immediately, every single time, as soon as I could see I was wrong. And then I was positioned to nail the top when it finally cracked, and then I played the bounce, and then I shorted it again.
Yeah.
So, I mean, part of it was that I was seeing pretty much the exact same pattern for a second time, but I didn't make the same mistakes I made the first time. So again, it goes back to learning from mistakes, embracing, those losses.
We've seen this pattern again, too. It's not just on Fannie Mae. I have a
Right.
blog post with Lithium Corp, like LTUM.
All those great lithium stocks, LEXG, yeah.
It was exact. Like, I'm taking crazy pills. I compare the charts as like exact, like minute to minute, like 27 straight green update minutes, and then like 34 green or red, minutes.
Yeah.
I'm like,
And then straight up green again, yeah.
it's insane. So you wait for this pattern, and next time, you're obviously going to be prepared. You have a few rounds under your belt.
Yeah, there was one recently that I was hoping would do it, and it didn't quite pan out. OWCP,
I saw
a couple
that,
weeks ago, yeah, and
Yeah.
I kind of botched that one a little bit. It just wasn't as smooth. But yeah, I mean, next time we see those, I'm ready.
The one thing that I want to really reinforce here is that trading is not like a 9-to-5 job, and this screws some people up because 9-to-5 jobs, you have normal paychecks, weekly, bi-weekly, bi-monthly. Trading, you might make 200 grand in a day and then 400 grand the rest of the year for 6, 7, 8 months. I had back in year 2000, I made, what was it, 730,000 in the first 4 months. This was the crazy bubble. And then the last 8 months, I lost 10,000 just testing out new strategies. There were no more breakouts to buy. I was only buying breakouts. I didn't know short selling. But to see that, dichotomy, like people are freaked out. They're like, what are you talking about? Like, did you totally lose it if you go like that? But it's based on opportunities if you learn to focus on the right patterns.
And I try to remind myself of that when I'm having a slow month or a couple slow weeks where I say like, okay, I'm just going to trust that the opportunities will be there again, and just not do anything stupid in the meantime to try to force it.
And that is when, frankly, you can go out and live. Like, we kind of live like crazy lives where, we are so focused when there's a good play. Like, nothing else really matters. But then when there's no plays, you can go out, explore, live. Like,
yeah. I remember, what was it, summer 2014 maybe, or 2015?
Yeah,
I took 2 months off. I didn't trade like all of June and all of July.
How was it? Where'd you go?
We were Puerto Rico, back in Chicago.
Yeah.
We bounced around a little bit, but
That's cool.
But it was cool. Like, it was just 2 months where I did nothing. Like,
Did you
I
think
would check my scanners at night. I would see like, oh, is anything going on in the market? Nope, nothing interesting.
Did you think your career was over, or were you?
No, it was fine. Like, I just knew things were a little slow, and typically summers are a bit slow. So
for the past few summers, which is just
last summer was crazy. That was the busiest summer I've ever seen.
June
but-
and July, I was like, are you kidding me? This is my time off.
Yeah.
I look forward to my time off. And then okay, let's get to 2014. So 2013 is in the books. You're already past $1 million,
Right.
right? By the, right around, I don't even remember exactly when it was.
It was December 2013.
We flew out to
It was the ticker. I can't remember the ticker now. It was a stupid pump that I shorted. I made like 7 grand on it.
You made
and that was
$9
what
grand.
passed me.
You made
was it
9
9? Okay,
grand,
see,
and you're like, I made 9 grand.
the details
I was
get
like-
hazy. Yeah.
I was like, you just made 9 grand. You're like, 9 grand.
Yeah, like, I mean, that was what was so fun
You're
about
like,
it. I
9
remember doing that. Like, one of the articles for CNN, I think it was, where
did a
I
few
talked to the
with
lady, and I was
Fox,
like,
too.
it's not like I made a $500,000 trade to get there. Like, this was just like any other old trade. Like,
and you said it like this was on Fox and Friends, and you were like, yeah, I made 9. And you're like, I made 9.
Yeah.
Like 9 grand is just nothing. This is what happens when you make too much too quickly. But
right, you stop appreciating it.
2014, what did you do?
Well, 2014, the first 3 months was wild. The OTC pumps were pretty much done in terms of like the new promo releases. but the OTC market was crazy because all the marijuana stocks were going
I
nuts.
remember.
And I was all over those. I mean, every day there was another big opportunity, and I think within 3 months of 2014, I had made another 600K.
That's awesome.
It was
GRNH,
it was
MDBX.
I
Remember
messed up.
MDBX?
I remember both of those.
I messed up MDBX. Remember when it was at 80?
Those
that
were
one
like the
morning?
exact same day.
That one, yeah.
Yeah.
GRNH went over $1.
GRNH, I lost like 60 grand, and MDBX, I think I made 60 grand. Like they kind of netted each other out. That was in January, I think, and I remember being really mad about that because again, it was a kind of a stubborn hold that screwed up what could have been a great day.
I remember MDBX. I shorted and I made like $5 a share, and it dropped like 40.
It was also good because it snapped me back into focus for the next 2 months of the marijuana craziness. So I remember struggling a little bit in April and May of that year because after all that crazy marijuana stuff, that kind of ended with what you started to see was these really sketchy OTC companies where they'd be a mining company and they'd put out a PR saying like, oh, we do marijuana now.
Hey, they tried. They're pivoting. That's a legit, I'm kidding, that's a joke.
But the SEC caught on, and I think 3 or 4 got halted in a couple weeks span. I got caught in a couple of those halts.
Yeah.
But that completely killed the sector.
Yeah.
And, OTC pretty much died off after that for a solid couple of years. And so in April and May, I was kind of looking around and I'm like, where are all the plays? Like, what am I going to do? Because at the time, I hadn't really gotten into NASDAQ trading yet.
Yeah.
And, after making 600 grand in 3 months, and all of a sudden you're making very little compared to that, I started pressing. I started
Did you think
giving away
about
some
going
money.
back to State Farm?
No, of course not. I started thinking about NASDAQ.
I think their cool commercials came around that time. Bum, 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 bum.
Jake from State Farm?
Yes.
The khakis?
Yes. So you have the khakis. You could have been that. You could have been Tim from State Farm.
I am Jake from State Farm.
You missed your calling.
Yeah.
Okay. So 2014, so you're figuring out what to do. How did you adapt?
Well, so I realized that there was really no more money flowing in the OTC market, so I had to find a new market.
You go where the money is. You
exactly,
adapt.
yeah, I adapted.
You adapt. Some people like, oh, my pattern doesn't work anymore. What am I going to do? Adapt or perish, okay? This is Dinosaur 101.
I went to NASDAQs, and I knew nothing about them. I'd never traded them before. Well, maybe I had a little bit here and there, but I didn't have any kind of comfort level with them. So the very first thing I did, I knew I wanted to focus on the same kind of things as OTCs. I wanted the volatile ones. I wanted the ones that had unusual volume and lots of range. So I would run a scanner at the end of every day where I would say, show me every NASDAQ today that closed up 15% or more. And then I would put those into a spreadsheet and I would see how did they do the next day. And the whole idea was, after a big strong green day, would they tend to continue? Like, should I be buying these and holding them into the next day, or would most of them fail and fade off? I tested, yeah. I wasn't even really trading them. I was just tracking them. I wanted to have some kind of idea of like what kind of bias I should go into these with.
How many spreadsheets did you have?
Man, I don't know.
You
I've probably made at least 10 different setups I've tried to track over the past few years. But that was the simplest of it, where it was just like, oh, here are stocks that are up with good volume, and let's see what they did the next day. And so that kind of pointed me in the short bias direction, because I would see that a lot of them would tend to gap down, a lot of them would fail and fade off. And I started to craft some strategies around that and start to try to trade those and figure out how to make some good money off of them.
Cool. Did you figure it out in 2014?
Yes and no. 2014, so that was when I started my really bad habits, where I started short selling these things pretty aggressively.
Yeah.
And sometimes I would just be too early. And I mean, at this point, keep in mind now I'm up about $1.6, $1.7 million. And I don't feel like I've got a whole lot to lose. So I had a very aggressive mindset where I could be down 30 grand and just kind of shrug it off and say, okay, well, I'm just going to add. And
most of the time you're okay.
And this is every time I was okay up until October.
Yeah.
And that's when the $290,000 loss happened. I remember one that stands out. Well, there's two that stand out. One was GPRO, the camera on a stick. And they IPO'd, they ran for a few days, and I started short selling, and I got stuck. And I remember being down 50,000 on GPRO and just kind of sitting back, relaxing, not panicking. And maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, I finally covered it up for break even.
Yeah.
And then RADA, that was another one where I shorted it at like $3. They put out earnings midday, and it squeezed up to 6. I was down almost 100K on that. And it closed at its highs. It closed at 6. And I remember like really sweating that night, thinking like, okay, what the hell am I going to do if this opens at 8 tomorrow?
Yeah.
And it keeps on squeezing to 10 or 12. Like, I'm going to take a ridiculous loss. And
Yeah.
instead, it gapped down, faded off, and within a week, I was out of that for like a $5,000 loss.
So you're learning
After being
bad
down 100.
habits.
So I learned really, really bad habits because I was going on these rides and getting away with it.
Yeah.
You know, this happened to me at least a dozen times in the summer and early fall.
And then it catches up to you.
And then Lake happened in 2014, the $290,000 loss, where I start shorting at 9. You know, I'm up $3,000, then I'm break even, then I'm down 10K, and then I'm adding. And it just spiraled out of control. And
You covered at what, 21?
I covered at 21, yeah, about, and it went to 30.
I remember that. And I was thanking you that you covered
Yeah,
at 21.
because I had a lot of shares.
It's like my millionaire student is going to blow up. This is not good. I remember your tweet. I'm going to drop the hammer tomorrow.
Yeah, that would have been pretty ugly.
Do you still have that tweet?
I'm
somewhere?
sure I have it somewhere.
You said
yeah.
drop the hammer. I was like, who is this? You don't drop the hammer. Tim Grittani doesn't drop the hammer.
That's the Tim Grittani is in trouble talk.
I
Yeah.
remember. I was freaking out. I'm glad you covered.
I at least, because that happened. I mean, getting away with those rides and playing the ridiculous size I was. Before Lake happened, I was up 1.2 million that year, and then Lake knocked me back about 300K. So I think the rest of the year was close to break even after that, or maybe small gains. Maybe I ended the year up 1 or 1.1, but I mean, I definitely didn't recover all of my Lake loss by the end of the year. I know that.
In the psychological.
Oh, it was killer.
Yeah.
It was absolutely killer psychologically.
Can you hear the drums outside, by the way?
A little bit.
Make sure they hear it. We're in St. Martin, by the way. Just randomly. We're not
Just hanging out, yeah.
We're just in, in the Caribbean. It's kind of cool. There's like Caribbean, like real hardcore, like steel drums being beaten. We're going to go to the buffet. What is it? The fish buffet? The
Pirate night.
The Pirates buffet later. Sorry, we got to interrupt. Okay, so you make roughly, how much did you make in 2014?
I think I ended the year up about 1.1 million.
But you ended on a really bad note.
Really bad note, yeah.
And how did you recover from that? Did you learn right away what
No,
you
I
did
didn't
wrong?
learn right away. I mean, I knew what I did wrong, but I didn't learn from it. I still made the
took
same
a few
mistake.
more.
And that's what got so frustrating and why 2015 was such a crappy year emotionally for me. Well, let's see. I guess early 2015 wasn't so bad. I mean, I still made some mistakes. But by maybe May of 2015, I was up $500,000. Yeah, that's what it was. It was by early May 2015, I was up $500,000. And then I took my $180,000 loss on PBMD.
I remember that.
And that one just started as a boredom short. That was a classic example of, hey, this week's kind of slow. Let's make something happen. And here's this random stock
I remember.
that ran really big
2 to
for
6.
some weird. Well, yeah, at the time though, it was like up from 130 to 2, and I shorted a bunch overnight, like just 20,000 shares, I think, overnight. On day one, because I'm like, oh well, these have been gapping down lately, and then all of a sudden it's gapping up,
Bad habits.
and opens up at 250 or 3 and squeezes me up to 6, and I had added. So yeah, $180,000 loss there. It took me until September to almost dig out from PBMD, and then I took a $105,000 loss on CANF.
Yeah.
And again, very similar story. Just in too early, stubborn, fighting it.
Adding to shorts is not okay if you have a small account. If you have a big account and you can somehow dig yourself out of it, sometimes it works out until the time it doesn't. But when you have a small account, do not do that.
I had a big account. I mean, I didn't get away with it. Like, I don't think account size has much to do with it. It's a terrible habit. Like, the time to add to a position is add to a winner.
I know some traders though with like more, and they can withstand it because they're, even if they lose 500 grand, they're okay.
You can withstand it, so you can't. I mean,
All it takes is one.
Exactly.
DRYS.
I mean, we see these ones where we say like, oh, they're like the 1 in 100, but like that 1 in 100 is all it takes. Like
that's how
stock.
if
DRYS got me. Like I was supposed to be like cured of my stubbornness, and then DRYS gets me. Like,
what were you shorting DRYS at? What'd you begin shorting it at?
So okay, this was what this was last year. So
we're up to 2016. Well, how did you do in 2015?
Well, okay, so 2015. I took the CANF loss in September, I think it was, and I think I shut it down for most of October because I had some really frustrated trades after CANF, and I was like, I just need time off.
Yeah.
I ended 2015 up 330 30,000 maybe.
We're going to cross-reference this on Profitly, so be careful.
Yeah, I know. I got to get it exactly right.
Roughly, so you made...
Roughly 330, I think.
You made roughly 330.
But, you know, I was up 500 in May.
I understand.
So, yeah.
But roughly 300,000, but you're learning a lot of lessons.
Oh, yeah.
And this is what people don't see. And maybe somehow in the future we'll figure this out with Profitly, where you are learning such tremendous lessons, and they're costing you a lot of money, but those lessons are going to help you in the future. So they're not wasted. No loss is wasted unless it knocks you out and then you don't learn from it.
I remember taking I was looking at my trades on Profitly, and I took a chunk of 12 months, I think from right around the time of my PBMD loss into 2016.
You were in the red?
I was in the red or break even
go.
for a year. We're talking about 12 months. 12 months of trading. I made no money.
Kidding. Don't cut.
So yeah, fast forward to 2016 now. You know, I realized I had made a mistake because I kept making the same mistakes over and over, and that was what had gotten me so down. And you know, that actually was the first time I ever had the thought of like, do I really want to keep doing this?
But understand that, and I was looking at your losses, even though you were making the same mistake, your overall dollar losses were going down.
They were getting smaller.
You noticed that.
I was
300,000, 200,000, 100,000.
But I think they
Still
were getting
a lot.
But emotionally, they were increasingly frustrating.
Because they are. Because you don't want that feeling ever again. When you have a big loss, you're like, oh my God, am I opening myself up to that exact feeling?
And you also say, like, what the hell is wrong with me? Like, I've done this 3 times now. Like, why haven't I been able to fix this?
But it's better to go from 300,000, 200,000, 100,000 than 100, 200, 300.
Oh, for sure.
You're trending in the right direction.
Yeah. So I came back to trading in November 2015.
If you had gone the other way, I would have come over to wherever you were and I would have smacked you.
I would have needed
like, don't ruin
I would
this.
have needed it for sure. But yeah, so it was November. I had the realization that what I'm doing is not working. You know, I keep saying I won't make the same mistake, and I keep on doing it anyway. So I read a trading psychology book.
The Daily Trading Coach.
The Daily Trading Coach.
Fantastic
book. Everybody should read it.
And The Psychology of Trading by Dr. Brett Steenberger. Have you read that?
Same author. I haven't read that one.
Same kind of thing.
But
you have to read things twice. It's for smart people, not for me.
But I actually made a losses journal where I would hold myself accountable anytime I took a loss more than I was supposed to and say, this is what I did wrong, here's what I learned from it. And I sized way down. That was the biggest thing. I set a risk for myself where I said I'm not allowed to lose more than $1,000 on any trade.
Yeah.
And that was a huge step back for me in terms of size because the way I'd been flinging shares around, I mean, there were times I probably had it within my plan to lose 10K on a trade.
But it's okay to go from big positions to small positions. That's part of being a trader.
It's completely okay and it was completely necessary. I had to do that to get myself back under control and get my habits back on the right track. And it also kind of forced me to say, like, okay, even if I trade perfectly this month with this smaller risk, you know, relatively speaking, I'm not going to make that much compared to what I've done up till this point, and I need to be okay with that.
You put yourself in timeout.
Pretty much. I put myself in a really long timeout, and I had to earn my way forward, where every single month I would do a recap, and I would say, okay, this month, here's how I did, and if I had very few mistakes, I would allow myself to size up a little bit the next month.
Yes, you reward yourself.
If I had a sloppy month, I had to stay put.
You're like a little dog in a doghouse. You're giving yourself little bones.
Yeah, so 2016, I mean, it was smaller months. I mean, 10K January, 10K February, 20K March, something like that. And then I started to size up a little bit more.
You're out of the doghouse.
I'm out of the doghouse, slowly getting out of the doghouse. The market got a bit more active. I mean, that, like we said, summer 2016 was one of the most active summers I've ever seen. July, I had no red days, which was crazy. Insanity. It was like the first time I've ever done that.
Yeah. And like a schmuck, I was traveling because I thought it would be a slow summer.
Yeah, I'm really surprised it wasn't. It was the first, like I said, I've never seen anything like that for a summer. But 2016, the rebuilding process worked out up until about September. And I talked about this. I did a blog post recapping my 2016 and kind of talking about how it kind of went off the rails a little bit starting in September and trying to figure out what I could attribute that to. And part of it was that I started doing a lot of travel and I was in the process of getting ready to move. And, you know, I was trying to trade on the road, you know, on my laptop. And I think there was just this part of me where when I was on the road and not in front of my home computer system, I was taking it a little less seriously and then holding myself less accountable.
Yeah, you get sloppy.
And that's not me making an excuse. That's something that I have to work on going forward because I want to be able to trade on my laptop and not feel like I'm being a dumbass.
Yeah.
So, like, I have to get better at that. But yeah, KBIO, or not KBIO, dries. Dries happened when I was in the middle of all this. And I just
Where'd
took
you start shorting it at?
$15.
Oh my God.
I had 2,500 shares at $15. A tiny position.
This went to
And
over $100, mind you, in like what, a week?
within like 4 days.
Yeah.
And so I have this tiny little $15 position, and I'm just like, oh, who cares? Like, I'm just gonna go out and
let it.
I'm gonna go out and do this and do
just let
that,
it,
and like
yeah.
it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like, it's this piece of crap stock. And then I start looking at my phone, and I'm like, oh, it's
And
a
wait,
20.
let's just do the
Oh.
math here. So you had 2,500 shares at 15. So a tiny little piece of crap position for you is $37,000.
Well, yeah.
Just to keep this thing in perspective.
At the time, though, I mean, I guess it had gone from 5 to 15 at that point already.
And so you think, okay, it's probably just going to come back in. I'll make
And
like
its high,
$5,000.
its high had been like 16, 17,
Yeah.
18,
You're
something
just-
like
you're
that.
just
So
gonna make
I was
$5,000.
like, okay, whatever. Like, I don't have too much risk on this trade.
Yeah.
And I'm out and running around and doing whatever, and I'm checking my phone, and then it's like at 20 and 22 and 25, and I'm like, what is happening here? And all of a sudden, I'm
Did you
thinking,
add to it?
not right away. So what happened was, I think it closed the day around 30, and at that point, you know, when I get back to my computer, I'm like, well, I don't want to take this loss. Like,
Yeah.
which at the time, it still was not that bad. I mean, it was probably a $30,000 loss at that point.
Sometimes as a short seller, and this is tough because most people aren't short sellers, sometimes you can fight your way through a position where you know that these stocks, I mean, I don't think any of these supernovas has ever stayed at their high. So you think that like you can beat the mountain and you just have to give it time. So that's the mentality.
Well, the plan wasn't to add. The
But you don't
plan
know
was
where
to
the
wait
top
it
is.
out.
Exactly.
I was like, okay, well, whatever. Like, I'll just wait this out.
Yeah, you
Like, this is stupid already. It's from 5 to 30. Like, it's not gonna.
It's a short-term
It's not gonna
storm.
last.
It's a storm that'll blow over, and almost every single time it does. You just don't know.
But
how
that
bad
one time
the
it
storm-
doesn't, yeah.
You don't know how bad the storm can get, and DRYS was a freaking tsunami.
So the next day it's
For shorts.
The next day it's up in the 70s, and I'm at this point like, what the hell did I do? I'm
You're
down.
still
I'm
at your-
down like 130K
You
now.
have your
and
2,500 shares.
I'm like,
still?
oh, I sold my 2,500 shares, and I'm like, I've been so good, and this is about to happen to me. What is happening? So I just like I suck it up. I'm like, okay, forget it. Like I boxed it.
Oh,
and
God.
again, it goes back to I hate
Yeah,
boxing.
Yeah, I hate boxing.
So I boxed the shares, and I'm like, you know what? Like
Don't even
tomorrow.
Google boxing. Don't even look it up. Do yourself a favor. Pretend you never heard of that.
But so we've gone from 15 to 75, and I've been good up till this point. Or maybe it was only to 50, I don't know. But
Yeah.
like whatever it was, I'd been good up to this point.
You're disciplined.
Oh yeah, it was only 50 because I remember thinking I boxed it up and I was like, well, that's a
You're
$77,000
like a fat
loss
kid.
technically.
You're a fat kid, and everyone's offering you cake, and you're like, no, no, no. But then you're just like, oh, let me just have one taste of the cake. So what'd you
Yeah.
add at?
So the next day it gaps up, it spikes, and I pretty much nailed the morning spike short.
Cool.
I unboxed, I added, and I
Nice.
nailed it.
Nice.
And it's collapsing. It's below its opening price. It looks like garbage. At this point, if I cover everything up, I'm break even.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm even green.
Yeah.
And I say, well, big picture, this is
Yeah.
still like in
Insanity,
at this point
yeah.
it's still in the 50s or 60s or
Yeah.
something like that. And I'm like, well, this
But
is
you
still
couldn't
stupid.
break even.
Like I'm just gonna wait on it. I'm gonna wait it out.
Ah.
And it was a trap. And
It
it came
was.
back and it grinds. And then I have to take everything off, including my ads at high of day as it's breaking. I had to eat it all right then. And
What'd you cover at?
I think I covered in the 60s or 70s somewhere. I honestly don't even remember.
Which was a
I
good cover compared to the next day.
Well, because it closed up at what, or it got as high as 90. I remember nailing an afternoon short on it where I made back like a third of my losses up to the
Okay.
point. But the next day it's gapping up and it's at the 120s and then it gets halted. And then
if
after,
it did not get halted, a lot
That-
of traders would have blown up.
I think so.
And frankly, they're fortunate. I don't want traders to blow up. But at the same time, you play with fire like that, one of these times you're going to get burned, and sometimes you're going to get burned beyond like recognition.
You see these crazy runners, and in the moment, I mean, going from $5 to $50, you say like, this is absolutely ridiculous. Like this shouldn't be possible. Like
AQXP.
it can't possibly keep going. And Dries kept going. And yeah, if it hadn't gotten halted, I really wonder where it would have topped. Like 150, 200.
I
Like
don't know. It would have been.
that would have been the mother of all
it
short
would have been
squeezes that
ugly.
morning.
And it still
Like,
was. And now it's back down.
It still was,
it's
yeah.
down to what? And you just made 70,000 back shorting.
Yeah,
it.
right.
Did you make back all your losses now?
Probably not.
Yeah.
I need to add it all up. I really should sit down. The problem is I keep doing stupid stuff with it too.
I got you.
So
One thing to note here, for those of you who don't like short selling, most people don't like short selling. They're not crazy like this. You longs can buy the absolute worst fundamental company, and it can spike. The worst
yeah.
fundamentally, just screwed up company can become the strongest stock. And a lot of like value people don't get that. They're like, but the fundamentals are terrible. If you catch shorts like this guy, especially this guy and me and a lot of other short sellers, and they keep adding to their positions and it keeps going higher, if you ride that on the way up, DRYS 5 to 120, they're not looking at it as a cautionary tale. They're looking at it as the single best play of the year.
Right.
So you can learn from short selling. So I know many of you guys don't like short selling. I still encourage you to learn from the mentality of a short seller and a short squeeze, because you can take the opposite direction. And just with 1,000 shares, you put in $5,000. I'm not saying this is going to happen all the time. It rarely ever happens, maybe like once or twice a year. But you put in a few $1,000s, and if you catch those short sellers, a few $1,000s can double, triple, quintuple, octuple within a few days, and you can learn to ride that side. I can't do that. You know, trying to predict short squeeze is a very tough game too. But it can happen.
I've always been better at doing it with OTCs.
Yeah.
I am decent at buying OTCs in squeeze situations,
There you
but
go.
I, for whatever reason, really struggle with it with NASDAQs. I would have definitely saved myself a lot of money if I'd been long a little bit of dries.
Gotcha.
Or
But even with the DRYS, you know, losses in 2016, you had your best year ever.
No, it wasn't my best year ever. It was, I think it was about 900,000. And, you know, 2000, what was it, 2014, 13, whatever year was 1.1 million.
Okay, my bad.
So it was really close. Though.
Close.
It was really close, and that was considering that I was really supersized down for the first half of the year.
And
so,
that's why I say it's your best year ever. Not necessarily just in terms of money, but in terms of executions,
execution and discipline.
scalability. The strategy that you have now is much more scalable than your strategy that you had to make.
I really only made two bad mistakes last year in 2016, and it was dries and it was BTU UQ, and that was just the sloppy road travel and.
But you learned.
Yeah.
But I want you guys.
I learned another weakness of mine. Like I need to be focused on the road.
You guys especially, don't just think of your years as good and bad based in money. Think about it based in strategy, execution. If you keep a diary, how well did you stick to your plan? How did you optimize? How did you adapt? What are the new patterns? Are the new patterns, you know, going to be lasting? Like OTCs, they're fun to play, but it's kind of a shit show in the OTC market with the promoters. Like they get shut down. Nothing's really happening. NASDAQs are more scalable. They're more liquid. So that's how I think of it. I don't know. I think you had your best year ever. I'm sticking with that.
In
But
some ways, yes.
Close enough. So now, lately, I mean, you've done fantastic with the challenge. You're giving more challenge webinars. You challenge students have 50 of this man's archive webinars. What have you learned from teaching? Because, you know, frankly, we're so grateful, especially you in the challenge chat room, just answering so many questions. What do you see, you know, a lot of students not doing or doing well?
I see a lot of reliance on, or I guess I should say a lot of people really worry about what is this other person doing instead of worrying about themselves. I've always really hated the follow the leader mentality, where it's like, you know, like, yes, like I've found success. Sykes obviously has found success. Mark Crook, Michael Good, Ducks. And people are drawn to that. People want to know what are they doing that makes them successful. And it isn't like there's any one golden holy grail pattern. I mean, we all do things differently. I mean, Ducks today nailed a short that I would never even touched. I mean, he killed it.
Perfect.
And it's
alerted in real time in the challenge chat
but
room.
it's so far outside of my comfort zone as a trader. And that doesn't mean I should be trading it. It's not like, oh, well, Ducks nailed this. I should push myself to learn that and put myself in these situations where I don't necessarily like feel in my element. You need to figure out who you are as a trader. And that's part of the reason why Ducks and I have been so successful, is because we look at these different sources of information and different gurus and what they're doing, but we just take little pieces of it. We take one little lesson. Like, I mean, I remember learning multi-day breakouts from you and cut losses quickly. Like, those are the two like most
That's all I got.
resounding things.
I'm
like
spent
that,
after that.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Those have stuck with me my whole trading career, though. Like those two things. Michael Good, it was all the OTC routing, buying new promos, stuff like that. Like, I mean, I could name probably half a dozen guys, and like little things I've picked up from each one of them.
And this is what Ducks also said. Ducks, you know, was a challenge student, and he's picked up stuff from you, from Mark Crook, from me, from Good, and he's combined it. And you know, you can reduce your learning curve first of all by studying all this stuff, and then also you become like this amazing trader because you have kind of like these advantages from different people. I didn't have that. I wish I had that.
Yeah.
And you have that, and now Crook has it, and Good has it. So never follow alerts from anybody. This is very important.
Yeah.
Never follow picks from anybody. Never rely on anybody. Never try to be exactly like somebody.
Yeah, no mimicry. Like that's not going to get you anywhere. You just need to take away the little lessons that apply to you and your personality.
So if you have $1,500, don't think that you're going to be, the next Tim Grittani with $4 million. He's gone through his ups and his downs. I started with 12,000. I've gone through my ups and downs. And the markets that we've been through, they're probably not going to be the same markets in the future. So you're not going to have the exact same path as us. What we like to share, and Frank, I don't know, I'm not speaking for you, I'm speaking for myself. I like to share these stories to show you what's possible, because a lot of people don't even think that this is possible to go up exponentially. Like the value investors say, 10 to 15% per year max, that's best case scenario. You can grow your account exponentially, but understand that there is going to be ups and downs. There's going to be different markets. There's going to be different patterns. It's not an exact science. You're going to have to battle yourself, battle your ego. But at the same time, it is possible. And just look, he's real. I'm touching him, okay? This isn't a green screen. These are real. We're real people here. And it's good for people to see that and not necessarily try to be exactly like us, but just see, wait a minute, holy crap, the internet allows this from anywhere in the world. We're in freaking St. Martin. You can still hear the little drums. Can you turn the drums up? Can you hear the volume there? We need to hear this. This is authentic. Yeah. So, and Joey's filming here. Say hi, Joey.
Hey guys.
We're keeping this in. Joey's been filming with me for years. I mean, he came to the Maldives. These two guys were in the Maldives when Tim Grittani was at 150,000.
Yeah.
And Joey still has yet to trade, which is ridiculous. You need to get in.
But I do know, cut losses quickly, and I know that when people think that they're smarter than the plan, that's when they mess up.
Oh yeah.
He's learned. He's been behind the
he'll
camera.
be very
He's
wise.
learning.
Yeah.
He's taking his time, but like in year 5 or year 10, like he's gonna do it. Any closing thoughts? We got to get going to dinner. I'm starving, but this has been good. What do you think people watching this need to hear?
I think one of the most important things to hear is you can't be in a rush. You can't put yourself in that position where you've got all your money on the line and you've got to make a bunch of money really fast. That's one of the biggest mistakes I see also. I don't get why people jump into trading with a lot of money on the line without any real idea of what they're doing. Count on blowing up at least once or twice. Like that's just part of the process, and those are the best lessons and what you will learn from, and really push you forward to success in the future. So do that small. Do that with an amount of money that won't really matter to you, but don't make it a mistake that you can't reverse. Because if I'd been trading, $5,000, $10,000 when I first started and blown that all up instead of just $1,500, I would not be here.
Start small, have patience, respect the process, respect your ego, cut losses quickly. Don't use leverage. By the way, we don't use leverage. In case some of you guys think like, oh, you use all this leverage. We don't use leverage. Okay, the stocks that we trade are volatile enough, and we don't have to even use big portions of our account.
That big Fannie Mae day, it's funny. Like as I was taking my positions, I was like making sure in my head like I don't want to have more money on the line than like I have in trading profits.
Yeah.
Because like some brokers will let you do like 4-to-1 margin. So like if you're not careful and you're just clicking, you could have way too big of a position. But like I was like, okay, I've got to make sure I don't go any bigger than this.
Listen, we both made a lot of mistakes, but we cut our losses quickly. If you use a lot of leverage and you bet too big, you cannot cut your losses quickly. That's the problem. And you blow up and you lose everything, and you might even be in debt. So that's where trading, and especially penny stocks and Forex and options, get very tricky. And we don't want any traders being in debt, and frankly, not even about the money, just losing all your confidence. I know, were your friends and family like supportive of you going into this, or were you like penny stock trading? Like, I know most friends and family.
I'm
hate
sure
this.
most people thought I was gonna just fail and move on.
My
like
parents
that.
gave me control of my bar mitzvah money. They thought that I would lose it all. They thought that I would learn the value of $1. Now I have no idea what the value of $1 is. The plans are all screwed up. But penny stock trading, why do you think it gets such a bad rap? Last question.
Because people confuse penny stock trading with penny stock investing.
Stop confusing it.
We are not holding these piece of shit companies for months at a time. Like most, if not all of these are gonna fail. We know that. And we're taking advantage of short-term volatility. We're in and out, usually the same day, if not within minutes. I mean, there is a very key difference there and very, very predictable angles to play. You know, we're not holding these things like lottery tickets.
We're not thinking that this is like the next Microsoft. That's what most people who go into penny stocks, you know, with $1,000, they're like, oh, I'll put $1,000, maybe it'll become, you know, 10,000. Oh, I hear the story, Tim Grittani, 1,500 into 4 million. He must have held one penny stock. This guy has traded thousands of stocks. I've traded thousands of stocks. And it adds up over time, and we have losses along the way, but it's not like we believe in any of these companies. We're using the volatility. And we went on Fox, and they had trouble believing this and understanding this.
I remember going through a lot of the comments on the CNN article. I thought it was hilarious. People who were like, oh, well, like, he's a lucky gambler, or, oh, he, like, you know, everyone who, like, there's always going to be some lottery winner, and it's like, that's not at all what's happening. I've made thousands of trades, and, you know, now a few years later and a few $1 million more and thousands of trades later, I just kind of want to, like, be like, in your face. Like,
yes, say that in your face. They're watching, the people who commented on CNN.
Maybe not in your face, but, you know, I'm still here. That's the thing. Like, I'm still here, and it's not luck.
We're still here. We're still imperfect. We'll still have losses. Do not follow us. Do not try to be exactly like us. Just learn from our strategy, from our mentality, from our adaptation. And you, if you work hard enough, if you have enough patience, if you believe in yourself, if you actually have like this multi-year, multi-decade journey in your mind, you can actually do this too. Cheers. Thanks for explaining everything. Thanks for all your hard work, dude. This is unbelievable. And
awesome.
Thank you for teaching now too. You challenge students, be nice to him because he doesn't have to teach you, but do you enjoy it? Do you enjoy like teaching?
It's fun, definitely.
Freaking amazing. Awesome stuff. Cheers. My name is Tim Sykes, and I teach people to trade stocks. I am a self-made multimillionaire. So this is the ideal trade that I'm going to talk about. I want you guys to understand every single aspect of this trade.